What's up, everyone? Tim Anderson here, aka Renfail, the bearded dwarven princess. I'm back with the next House of the Dragon episode review. It's good. As we get going this morning, I may be distracted somewhat because I have this in my lap. For those of you who can see, I've got Pippin, who she's still got her cone on. She's been being a monster this morning and wanting to play, and she's got stitches, so I've been trying to keep her here on my lap. She's finally started to calm down and she's purring and maybe falling asleep. So we'll see if she actually goes to sleep while I'm doing this review. So before we get going, spoiler alert, I'm not holding anything back. So if you don't want the episode spoiled, I feel like the season's already over. I'm late to the show. I don't think this is spoiling it for anyone, but just get that out of the way. If you're a returning viewer, you know what to do. If you are new, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update, and support in all the ways you can, starting with memberships and one-offs and all the good things you can do to support. And thanks to those of you who already are supporting. All right. This show, there's two scenes in particular in this episode that define, in my mind, HBO's niche as prestige television when it comes to brilliant acting and dialogue and the mastercraft of performance. Leaps and bounds beyond anything we've seen from Rings of Power. This is why House of the Dragon is way more critically acclaimed and got way more viewership than Rings of Power did. Just as we dive into this episode, get that out of the way right out of the bat because great episode. So we're starting off here. We get a sequence, which at the beginning of this, I thought we were immediately picking up from where the last episode left off because uh, the Sea Snake had tried to convince Daemon to go to war with him against the Crab King guy. And there's this sequence on the beach, and the Crab King dude is nailing somebody to a stake to a post on the beach and putting crabs on him. The guy's screaming, and then they hear it all. They hear it. They hear a dragon call, and here comes Prince Daemon. And the dude is like, "Save me, my prince, save me!" And the dragon comes down and just squashes him with its foot. Really impressive visuals here. Daemon is calling this guy Drahair, Prince Drahair or something. Then a bunch of archers come and we see that, dragons aren't impervious to damage, although they can take a beating. But Daemon gets hit with a bow, fly off. And then we get this sequence where we're at like a birthday party. And I was like, how much of a time jump have we done? And apparently it's been 3 years. And the way they do this with the dialogue is fairly unique because they're letting us know, hey, this is the birthday party of the prince. He's 2 years old. This guy's wanting to remind the king about the war, and they mention it's been 3 years, etc. So at least we've gotten another time jump out of the way. The prince's name is Aegon, which I think is the name of one of the previous big Targaryens, the one who had all the visions, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. Anyway, the only thing that remains apparently is for Viserys to name this son as his heir, and he's having some idle chatter with the Hand is having some idle chatter with one of these politicians, and this guy's like, "You need to let the king know that he needs to name this male as an heir, not the princess." And the Hand is like, we'll take it in stride, but it's very evident that as what is her name? Not Rhaenyra, but Rhaenyra, the older woman, the queen who could have been, or the queen who might have been, or something like that, had said, men rule the world. No one will ever want a woman on the throne. At this point, we get a man reporting about the ongoing war. The crabmen are hiding in the caves. The dragon attacks are useless. And the king, is pissed off and said, "I don't want to hear about it on my baby's day." And the guy keeps pressing. And the Hand finally says, "You know what? Daemon and the Sea Snake started this war without the king's leave. They can deal with the consequences." And the king gets distracted here because Rhaenyra's not at the feast. Is it Rhaenyra's? Let me look up the cast names because I get confused. Because there's the older woman. Yeah, there's Rhaenyra. Yeah, it's Rhaenyra. Okay. I get confused with the name. The princess, I should just say the princess, and that's the easy way to remember. The princess is not at the feast, and the king is pissed off. She's off under the tree, listening to a bard going through books. Allison shows up, her ex-friend, and she's pregnant again. She's like, "Come on, we should go do this hunt with the king and everything." She's like, "No, I don't want to. I want to stay here with my bard." And the queen demands that the bard leave. Princess is pissed. King this, king that. Um, and Allison's trying really hard. She obviously wants her friendship back, but Rhaenyra doesn't want anything to do with it. But eventually she convinces, not because it's not really convincing. She's like, because Rhaenyra says, is the king ordering me to attend? And she's like, yes, but it would be better if. And Rhaenyra's like, yeah, well then fine. Slams her book shut and off they go. And they're in a wagon now at this point. And the king's like, yay, family time. Come join me on the hunt. And she's like, no. And he's like, well, then how would you like to participate? Because you need to participate in royal duties. You're my daughter, the princess. You have duties. And she's like, no one's here for me. Why should I give a shit? So her whole thing, her whole hang up is she's obsessed with the fact that because everyone's told her this and she sees it all around her, no one wants to recognize her as the heir anymore. They just want this baby boy who's been around for the last couple of years to become the heir. And so, it's a fair point. By the way, I gotta share you guys. She's falling asleep finally, which is good because I actually have to go to the store after this and get more sealer for her little outdoor cat shelter for her and her brothers and sisters. Anyway, they get to the party. Everyone's celebrating the 2 year-olds, and yeah, nobody gives a shit about the princess as she walks through. And this is why she doesn't give a fuck. She meets with some of these older ladies who are gossiping about how the realm is at war, whether the king wants to admit it or not because of his brother. They want the king to do something, and the princess admonishes. It's a brilliant line. She's like, "What have you done to contribute apart from eating cake?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, you go, princess. You go. Yes, queen." Um, she's back out in the camp, and we get a presentation of a guy named Jason Lannister. And I was like, he looks a little familiar compared to the guy who was reporting to the king earlier. And it turns out that he's got a twin, Tyland, who serves on the king's council. And he's drunk, he's hitting on her, brags about his home in Casterly Rock. I don't have a dragon pit, but I have enough money to build you one. I can build one for my lady wife. And she's like, thanks, but no thanks, and bails. And she stomps right into the middle of the party and confronts her father, the king, yelling at her, yelling at him, not really yelling, but just upset, that, can't believe you're using me as a plaything, trying to get me married off and popping out babies. And then they have this shouting match in front of the whole hall. And Hand is the one that's like, my king, the hunt. We should return to the hunt. There's been a white hart that's been sighted. The king of the Kingswood. Let's go. So he's trying to avoid the king embarrassing himself further in front of the hall. So at this point, the Princess Rhaenyra rides off to go into the woods by herself. Kristen Cole rides after her. They have a heart-to-heart discussion about how she feels like she was only named heir to further the name of the house. And, Jamie, this Lannister guy, I said Jamie Lannister. It's Jason. Jason? Was it Jason? Yeah, Jason Lannister. And Kristen's like, I can kill him for you if you want. And they have a chat, go off exploring the woods, camping together. They seem to be having a genuine friendship. I don't know if this will turn into a romance. It remains to be seen. But back at the dinner party, the king is just getting drunk. He's super depressed. He's super stressed. I mean, this guy has got problems from all sides. He's got people nag and nag and nag and nag and nag about his brother in the war, and nag, 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 nag about the princess, and nag, 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 nag. Name your son as the heir. And he's accepting gifts for his son, and there's a speech between Jason Lannister, who's bumbling over the wedding proposal speech, and reminding the king, don't forget, she'll be well taken care of and compensated for her loss of standing. And the king says, what loss? He replies, well, the losing her status as heir. And the king replies, who says I will be naming my son heir? And the Lannister guy is like, well, many people have assumed, sir. And the king's like, have you questioned my choice of heir? Is there rebellion stirring? It's your duty to report if there's rebellion stirring. And he just sloshes more wine as Jason Lannister goes off. And one of his, I think it's the Master of Coin again, comes up and says, hey, there are choices beyond Casterly Rock. Or excuse me, this is not the quite, I got sidetracked here. I got ahead of myself. The Hand presents another option and says you could marry her off or betroth her in any case to Prince Aegon, Sounds creepy, but this was a Targaryen custom of intermarrying in the newborn. It would seize the endless proposals, and the king has a snapping moment. He just snaps. He's like, "I came here to hunt, not suffocate from this endless fucking politicking." And I was like, "I hear you, bro. I'd be pissed too." The hand's like, "Fair enough. I won't mention it again." And then we get the Master of Coin coming and making another proposal and says, eh, I think that remember the sea snake? I told you to marry his daughter. Well, you could marry his son. You could marry Princess Rhaenyra to his son, bind the houses together, and the king kind of grumpily considers it and stumbles off. I mean, he is just drunk, 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 drunk. Back to Princess and Kristen Cole by the campfire. There's a boar attack. He saves her life. Then they both kill it together, and the hunt. Back to the bonfire now, and the king is just completely sloshed, and Alicent is with him, and he's going on about how there's the power of prophecy within the family, and he thought that the dream he had about a son wearing the conqueror's crown was a prophecy. He wanted so badly to have the gift of dreaming, because dragons are only dragons, but what are dragons next to the power of prophecy? And the dream never came again. And his obsession with having a male heir is what killed Rhaenyra's mother. And he's been racked with guilt over the years because of that. And he's professing all of this to Alicent. Um, and, he obviously cares for her, but he's having a moment of absolute drunkenness and sharing his deepest, darkest fears with her. Great acting here. Then there's the horn. Time to go hunt. It's not the hart. It's just a regular deer. But the king kills it. He's hung over as hell. But then we see Rhaenyra looking out over the forest from a rise, blood in her hair from the boar. She's got the boar behind her. And there's this white hart. She sees the white hart. And it runs off into the forest. And then she comes riding back into camp, covered in blood, and like drops the boar off with like the skinners. And all the hunters are like giving her appreciation, and all the court people are like, "The princess covered in blood." Um, there's a private moment where the hand starts pressuring his daughter Alicent that she needs to convince the king to name her son the heir, and she doesn't want anything about it. She wants her friend to be queen, and he demands that she force the king to see reason as he's never going to see it as her own. And then we get what in my mind was the first of the really brilliant scenes that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, which is this scene between Alicent and Viserys where Allison asks him to forget about your brother for a moment, forget because she starts out the conversation wanting to talk about Rhaenyra, and he's like, I don't want to talk about that, and she's like, well, what about your brother? And all these things. He's like, I can't send him aid because how is that going to make me look? And he's not wrong. And she's like, well, ask yourself this question then. Um, Put your brother out of the equation for a moment, and if your kingdom is suffering, what should you do about it? Would it be better to let the Crab King continue or to get rid of him? And so he makes the decision to send aid. We then get another brilliant scene between Rhaenyra and her father, like two scenes back to back here, and it's this sequence about duty and honor and sacrifice as rulers. And this acting is, he's like, I don't want to replace you. I'm not going to live forever. I just want to see you content and happy. You must marry, shore up your succession, but make your own match. Search him out, find one that pleases you as I did. And this is the advice that Alicent gave him in the previous scene. She's like, I believe that Rhaenyra will marry, but you have to let her come to the decision. And this is the moment where Rhaenyra smiles at her father. The connection is rekindled. And she's grateful that her dad is going to let her choose her own match in her own time. And then he's honest with her and he says, I did waver once, but I swear to you now on your mother's memory, you will not be supplanted as my heir. So he's made an oath now to her, and she feels justified or she feels comforted. But will that remain true? Well, we'll see. Then we're back to the war. They're losing. Um, Corlys's brother wants to mutiny against Daemon. Um, and Corlys is like, I'm not going to have any talk about mutiny on my watch. And then the king's men show up and give a letter to Daemon, and Daemon smiles for a minute, and then he proceeds to beat the shit out of a messenger as he reads it. And I was like, why is he upset? And I think it's just pride, because the king says, I've ordered 10 ships and 2,000 men to come to your aid. And though we have been estranged, I do not wish to see you fail. I hope my aid helps you with victory. And then there's this scene where Daemon presents a white flag attempting to draw the Crab King out of the caves. There's a massive battle scene here. He gets shot up a few times, but manages to run into the cave. There's dragon fire distracting all the men. And then we just see him dragging the upper torso of the Crab King out, covered in blood. Victory! And that's the end of the episode. And I gotta say, another 10 out of 10. I think Pippin agrees. 10 out of 10. Yeah. Love to hear your thoughts. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, support in all the ways that you can. I'll see everybody next week. I'll have another episode up, once a week, maybe once or twice a week. At least once a week, I'll be doing one of these House of the Dragon episodes. I haven't found anything that I need to rant about yet. So right now it's just straight up reviews. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then.